Hello and welcome everybody to the very first Pocket Console Google Hangout on air. I am your host today, Michael Cunningham, and with me I have Mr. Michael Apps. Also, both of us are from RP Gamer, but we're kind of taking some time out today to talk about our favorite handheld gaming devices. Just a brief introduction as to what this is we've just kind of done a brief little Google Hangout recording, just kind of impromptu, and we're going to test this out, see how this format works. And both of us are going to talk about some of the games we've been playing recently and just kind of see how things go from there. So without further ado, I kind of want to jump in and talk to Senior Apps about his recent imports. An import,
Yes.
what have you bought recently? Tell us about it.
Well, with the recent uncertainty with the future of Dragon Quest in the US, I decided to just say, you know what, screw it, I'm importing a Japanese 3DS.
So you got to the acceptance level of the 5 stages of grief, in other words.
Exactly. So, not to just import a random Japanese 3DS, I actually went for the special Terry's Wonderland 3D edition.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's just got a bunch of blue slimes and a few metal slimes on the front, and it says Dragon Quest since 1986. So it's pretty nice. Definitely a nice little collector's item.
Oh, very nice. That's one of the ones, if I was to import, I'd definitely want to get that. And
Yeah.
for those of you who are, kind of wondering, in case it's flipping back and forth between me and a Platypunk, there's no webcam on App's side, so that's what we've got for today, and it's kind of fitting with the Dragon Quest talk. So
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us what all you got with the imported Japanese 3DS.
So, I got a used one which didn't actually come with Terry's Wonderland 3D, but I eventually picked up both Dragon Quest monsters for the 3DS, along with Dragon Quest 7, Slime Mori Mori 3, or Mori Mori Slime 3.
I call that one Pirate Slime.
Yeah, that works perfectly. And I actually picked up Monster Hunter 4, even though that's coming to the US, because with the updated version coming out, it's gotten pretty cheap. So I got that for just over $20. I'm impatient, so I don't mind trying it out early.
That's not a bad deal. Well,
No.
what about the Dragon Quest games? Which one did you dive into first?
So I wanted to dive into Dragon Quest Monsters first, but as it turned out, there was kind of a miscommunication with me and the Japanese seller on Amazon, so I was actually expecting it to come with the game, and it did not. So, but thankfully I had already ordered Dragon Quest 7, so that turned out to be the one I tried out first, which I guess is fitting since that kind of set all this off.
Nice. Now, I noticed, anybody that's following RP Gamer has seen your recent impressions that have just gone up, and yes, this is the game that I really wish we had gotten, but I've kind of given up hope on, and as apparently you have too, considering you imported it. Now, it's changed quite a bit from the original PlayStation release. Tell us a little bit about what's changed this time around.
Well, for anyone unfamiliar with the original PlayStation release, if you've seen the DS games, the DS remakes of 4, 5, and 6, it looks a lot like those, which is okay. Except this was a late PS1 release, and we'd already had the likes of Final Fantasy IX and other great-looking games like that. So it's not exactly a looker, which I guess we never exactly looked for in the Dragon Quest series, but it probably turned a lot of people off. So the first thing you'll notice with the remake is that it looks absolutely stunning.
Now that's one big plus, because I'm one of those people who had never really touched any of the Dragon Quest games outside of owning the original for just a few minutes and playing it and being like, man, this is archaic. I'm going to go back to something else. And I didn't get into Dragon Quest before I did Final Fantasy, so I did purchase Dragon Quest VII on release and was like, what the heck is this? And played it for a couple hours, and I was like, when do I get to do something?
Yeah.
So sadly, I ended up trading it back in, or just outright returning it when EB used to do that. You could open games and take them back, and I ended up returning that one. But I wish I hadn't, because I ended up rebuying it, recently.
Yeah. And it's not super cheap.
No, it wasn't, but have to have them all, got to collect them all. So
yeah.
You said there's some other things outside of the graphics too that have changed. It seems to be a little more streamlined.
Yeah, so the original is really kind of an oddball type game. Like you start off in this. The intro is all about kind of like wandering around the starting island, finding these puzzle pieces, and eventually you like unlock different parts of the world, and I think technically time travel and go and fix things. It's really kind of an interesting setup, but it takes a little bit too long to get to like the meaningful bits. Like I remember actually, when I had this game in English, actually taking forever to get out of the intro area, just trying to figure out where the heck to go. So they've streamlined that a bit. The puzzles that were in that opening segment in the original are completely gone. So you end up just finding the I guess they're like map pieces that open up the first area, and once you find them all, you unlock it, and that's it, and you're off to the new area. So it took me like 2 hours, a little over 2 hours, to get through the intro section, whereas it probably took me longer than that in the original. And this is, I actually referred to like a guide for the original game a few times to figure out where to go, but for the most part, I just kind of wandered around and figured things out. So, if you actually know Japanese, it's probably even quicker than that. So
that's the good thing about the Dragon Quest games too. They're pretty streamlined in their style. The gameplay doesn't change dramatically between those, so it's easy. If you know one, you can probably pick it up even if you don't know Japanese.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, that can probably get harder as you get farther in the game, but I was able to find my way around the menus pretty easily, remembering like the DS games, because everything's kind of laid out similarly. So yeah, it was actually just kind of fun. Just the graphics are that nice in this. It's kind of fun just wandering around, seeing the characters. The character models in this kind of find a nice balance between like I'd say more realistic models from Dragon Quest VIII and kind of the more cartoony ones from Dragon Quest IX. It's kind of like a middle ground between those two, I'd say.
Nice. Now, one thing I was curious about, and it was one thing I really liked about 9, and you seemed to touch on too in your impression, was the kind of the battle system, everything, the encounter system, everything's now on screen. You see all of the enemies on screen when you interact with them. And it looks like all of your characters move around in 3D, kind of like in Dragon Quest IX as well.
Yeah. So yeah, the monsters are on the screen, on the world map, in dungeons, which is nice.
Still separate encounters and still turn-based combat, but a lot like Dragon Quest IX as far as that goes.
Yeah, and you see like I said, you see the characters, and they follow you around as you're exploring dungeons and stuff, and a nice little touch. The characters kind of have their own touches to how they, run and stuff. So
nice.
Kind of just a nice little touch. Since this is this is different from Dragon Quest IX, since it's all pre-set up story characters, so you kind of get a nice little touch for all of them, or at least the ones I've seen so far.
Right. Now, the one thing I was curious about, and I'm not sure, I haven't read into enough of the impressions from other people that have played it to really know, and you may not have gotten far enough into the game to know either, but I was curious if it had any of the same similarities to Dragon Quest IX, because one of the things I loved about that was it has one of my favorite encounter systems in any RPG, and the fact that you can, fully move around. You can have certain classes will allow you to hide from enemies better than others. And I didn't know if you'd had any chance to get around to that yet, or read anything up on whether
Um,
this version does that or not.
I haven't really read anything on that, but it seems that it's more classic. Like the whole way the battles are set up, uh, kind of seems to try to evoke the classic Dragon Quest games. Like you got your first person view, and then it animates the characters attacking the enemies, but it still kind of sticks to the line of enemies, line of characters, and that's about it.
Okay.
It's like perhaps even less cinematic than even Dragon Quest VIII was.
Gotcha.
So,
So it sounds like this is still the kind of classic game that similar. It sounds similar to Six in the style of you wait a while before you actually get the job system, but
yeah,
it seems to have enough. It seems to
wait
have
a long
enough.
while.
Yeah, seems to have enough improvements to still be one of the games that I'd love to have a chance to play if it ever made it in English. But
Sure, and it's a really fast battle system too.
Yeah.
As much as I love Dragon Quest IX, that one could be a bit pokey at times, but yeah.
Well, before we start longing too much for what we can't have or what I can't
Yeah.
have, well, you can't have it either in English, so
It's
you're
true.
suffering through it. What about the other one? You imported a lot of them, but you said you've been playing a little bit of the Dragon Quest Monsters remake. What about
Yeah.
that? Tell us a little bit about that one.
So I've been digging that one a lot more because it's a lot easier to play.
Yeah, the Monsters games are a lot less story heavy and a lot more gameplay focused.
Yeah, and what's really nice about this one is it's got pretty much the exact same menu as Joker 2, the last Dragon Quest Monster game to come
Nice.
out
I love
in
Joker.
English. Yeah, so you'll pretty much be right at home, and it's got a lot of the same monsters, obviously, and the same menu and battle too. So if you've played that one, then it's really easy to figure out. I mean, obviously, a lot of the abilities in battle share icons, but at least give you an idea of what the ability is. So you may have to do a little trial and error when you unlock new abilities for monsters, but otherwise, it's really easy to play in Japanese, and it's the progression is pretty linear. You guess like the original, which I haven't played in a long time. You go to kind of like these randomly generated areas and progress through and fight a boss, which so far has been like classic monsters from the original Dragon Quest. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. On the negative side, it doesn't really feel as interesting as Joker 2.
Yeah, I'd imagine with being a remake, you've got a little bit more, nostalgia going into it, but at the same time, it doesn't have all of the, newness that something like Joker 2 would have. And, the jump from Joker to Joker 2 was enough for me to notice, because I couldn't get into the original Joker
Yeah, me
when I
neither.
first tried it. But Joker 2 was smooth to get into, the progression was fine, still didn't care about the story, but it was still a great progression in the way that you went about doing things.
And the areas in that island were just really cool to wander around. You even have the switch between day and night to find different monsters in the areas. So yeah, this one is a bit disappointing in that regard, which I guess you'd expect. But I do feel like they could have done a little more to spice things up a bit, but it's still
like
got
said,
lots
kind
of
of what you
monsters and
expect.
stuff. Yeah, still got lots of monsters and stuff. Another thing is the original. I guess you kind of have like this giant tree as a home base, which kind of feels like they made it too big. Like it it takes a bit long to get anywhere in the thing. I mean, you can use like the zoom spell to switch between different areas, but obviously that's a little harder when I can't read what areas I'm teleporting to. So I don't know. It's overall, it's definitely a good game. Just not quite Joker 2.
Yeah, it seems like it would have probably been the easier of the set. You know, the Monsters games, the three of those that have been out in Japan, it seems like those would probably have been the easier to localize just because of less text and, you know, more focus on monster names, which have already kind of been standardized at this point. But possibly due to the fact they are remakes of older games, may not have had the same kind of appeal as, you know, some of the others would have.
Yeah.
But still, probably didn't help it with
No.
its chance of being brought over.
And I don't know if Joker 2 sold anything at all.
Poor thing probably didn't. It was really good. I liked it better than I did Dragon Quest VI and, you know, the original Joker. So it's a shame that it didn't get more love in the media or just in sales in general.
Yeah.
But as far as Dragon Quest goes, I don't want to hang on those too much. And just mainly because it's going to make me sad. Yeah, go ahead.
One last note about this one is it actually includes a code with an app, an app download from the eShop that lets you import monsters from Joker 2.
Oh.
I don't know if that will work on like the English version.
Right.
Probably not.
Well,
but
yes, since region locking, you can't swap the two out or jump. There's probably no good way to get that to happen unless you had a Japanese version of Joker 2, right?
Yeah, probably. I may give it a try at some point just to see if it works. But you know, you just download the app onto your 3DS, and then probably works like I don't know, however the Pokemon Bank app works, where you put in the DS cartridge and then fire up the app, and it does something. I don't know, but
okay.
That certainly would have been that certainly would have been fun to have had this come out over here. But
so yeah, North America, you're to blame for us not liking Dragon Quest and us not getting these. Yeah. I put it solely in your hands, going out and buying Call of Duty instead of this, because those are so comparable.
Well, at least this is a much smaller loss than Dragon Quest VII.
That's true, but still 5 losses nonetheless.
Yeah.
But before we go into your next one, I kind of wanted to, I'll give you a break from talking for a bit, and I want to kind of switch gears for a bit and talk about 2 little recent releases on the PlayStation Vita that I've been playing. The first one of those that I got a couple weeks ago and reviewed a week or so ago is called The Swapper. And that's a game was released on PC, I guess late last year. I can't remember exactly when, but in 2013. And it's basically Portal minus the humor. It's a sci-fi 2D side-scrolling puzzle game where you explore around in almost like a Metroid-style, you know, space station. But in order to progress through certain areas, you run across these blocks where you're kind of blocked off until you obtain enough orbs to get through to the next section. And in order to obtain these orbs, you have to locate these puzzle rooms where the swapping ability comes into play. It's kind of hard to explain and hard to really understand, but in just as simple terms as I can make it, you have one character that I'll bring up the Metroid comparison again, the 2D Metroid style, because you'll have one character and you can kind of move your cursor around with the right stick on the Vita and aim where you would like to create a clone of yourself. You can create up to like 4 clones, and you can also aim with your gun and shoot and swap between those. So say you're on the left side of the screen, you make a clone on the right side, there's nothing between you and that clone, you can shoot your gun and you'll swap between those. Whenever you're moving left, the clones move left, you jump, the clones jump, so on and so forth. So you'll run into different puzzle rooms where you have to have multiple clones doing multiple things and swapping between them to trying to reach certain orbs in the, wherever they're hidden in the room. They put some roadblocks in there in terms of lighting. There's a blue light that won't let you create clones within it, but you can swap the clones within it. There's a red one where you can, I think I may have got that reversed, but the red one will let you create clones, but it won't let you swap to them. The blue does the reverse. Then there's another light that kind of blocks everything. So they just kind of throw these puzzle rooms together and make you figure out how in the world to jump between these areas. And, there's platforms and blocks you have to push, and it's just kind of a very interesting puzzle game, and it'll make you feel really smart when you complete them, or incredibly stupid when you can't figure out what in the world you're supposed to do. So that's where the Portal comparison came into me. And it's got an interesting sci-fi story. You've kind of found this abandoned space station and these other people, and you find the audio logs, and you start figuring out that the whole crew seems to have died, and you don't really know why, and eventually you kind of figure out what happened had to do with the swapper clones. And it's, I don't want to ruin any of it for anybody, but it's not a deep story, but it's kind of interesting to see how things unfold, and it's a neat little mystery. The game's not very long, but the puzzles will last you for a while to get through the entire thing, and gives you some neat choices throughout. So it's fun. It's I believe it's cross-buy across PS4 and Vita. So if you want to check that one out, if you're looking for something that's got a little neat puzzle aesthetic, it's really cool. It's kind of got a dark, mysterious setting to its visuals as well. So
it sounds really cool. What do the visuals look like? Is it kind of like 8-bit inspired or anything like that, or more something more modern?
No, it really does. With it being 2D side-scrolling, it really kind of does remind me a lot of Super Metroid, minus all of the color. It's kind of got a good black and white contrast to it in a lot of places, and then you'll run into the areas where you have the red and the blue and the kind of the purplish lights, and that kind of counterbalances everything, so where you can see all the different colors contrasting with each other. But it's kind of a very dark setting for the most part. The visuals are not what I would call really standout, but they kind of fit the setting. You're alone in this space station trying to figure out what's going on, and it kind of gives that vibe with the setting. So it's interesting. I definitely recommend it. It shocked me because I really didn't know what it was going into it, and picked it up and tried playing and thought it was going to be something I'd get stuck on like Limbo and not want to go back to, and ended up getting through some of the puzzles and found some of the trickier ones, how to solve those, and I was like, oh wow. And I'll fully admit to near the end of the game looking up how-tos on just some walkthroughs, because I had no clue what in the world I was supposed to do, because you had to jump and get against a wall and walk against a wall and cause your clones to fall off and die, because in order to be able to create new clones after you've created your maximum, you've got to either kill off some of your others or touch them to reabsorb them. And it just blew my mind, some of these, and I was like, even with a walkthrough, I still had trouble with some of them. But the death penalty is pretty easy. You just end up starting back over at the checkpoint right before the puzzle, so there's not a whole lot of downtime if you do die or can't figure out the puzzle. It's it's very forgiving.
Well, I'm gonna have to download this because that sounds really cool.
Yeah, it was fun. If you're good with playing kind of platformy puzzle games, it's neat, because there's some areas where you'll be in like a dead drop, and if you hold down the trigger button to where you're supposed to create one of your clones, it kind of slows things down. And if you're at a fall where you're about to die and you hold the trigger button, you can aim one of your clones at the bottom and immediately let go and immediately shoot, and it'll swap you down there, and it's like you've just barely fallen, and then the clone that you were in falls to its death. But But yeah, it's just neat to be able to do that, and you start doing that. You can do that to kind of jump up these giant areas too, and then there's some places where you're in 0G and you've got to kind of shoot yourself through these asteroids. They don't hurt you, but in order to progress to the next area, it's just fun. It was a fun little game, and I really enjoyed it. And I thought that was hard, and then I started playing Rogue Legacy.
Oh boy. I've heard a lot about the challenge level in that game.
Let me just say, I love Rogue Legacy, and I hate Rogue Legacy. There's so many games that I play that, when it gets too hard or when it gets challenging, you just want to just set it down or throw it down and be like, you know what, screw this. I've got too much to do with my life. I'm not going to worry and waste my time with it. But for some reason with Rogue Legacy, I can't stop playing. I'm stuck at a boss right now, the third boss in the game, and I don't really feel like I should have to grind at this point. I know other people have beat it at lower levels than I have with probably lesser stats. I know I'm at a level where I can, and I feel like I'm this close, but I just wanted to throw the Vita across the room earlier. But instead of doing that, I just hit restart and picked up another game and started playing again. So if you aren't familiar with the game, just to kind of give you a brief summary of what Rogue Legacy is you start as this peon knight, and you're at level 1. You've got a castle to explore. You go into the castle. It's kind of a randomized layout. There's the main castle area. To the east is a forest. To the north is kind of a tower area. To the south is a dungeon. And good luck getting through those areas, because the first area is hard enough when you first start. There's randomized enemy layouts in each stage. There's floating mages. There's eyeballs that shoot fire at you. And you've got to progress your way through, gaining as much gold as you can. Because when you die, it kicks you back to the start screen. You hit start, you start a new legacy, and you have 3 options for your children to choose from. They've all got different traits. They've got different job classes. There's like the assassin. There's a barbarian, has high hit points. There's a paladin, which is kind of the all-around kind of guy. And there's the miner spelunker, which is just good at gathering gold. So you have all those different options, and it kind of randomizes you with 3 different ones, and they have different traits too. Some of the traits are like OCD. If you smash things, you gain magic points back. There's one that's like IBS, where you're walking around and your character farts. Just random. And, your character can be gay, which has no real impact on anything whatsoever. Just an interesting twist on stuff, and just kind of threw that in there because it's a feature. But it gives you all these random traits to choose, so you have to pick the one that's going to be the best fit. And what I ended up finding out just through trial and error is you want to try to make as much gold as you can in one run, because you don't get to keep your gold when you start the next time around. You get to spend it before you go back into the castle. So say you go into the castle, you gain 2,000 gold, which is just about my limit nowadays as far as getting gold. You die, you're kicked back to your manor, and you can spend it on traits, you can spend it on items, runes, and different equipment. And then when you go back into the castle, in order to get back in and start again, they take your money from you. So, it's kind of like this gatekeeper, Grim Reaper, that's saying, you want in, you owe me money. You can get a trait that helps you reduce the amount that he takes from you. Right now, like 80% is what I have to give him. I think you can spend up and get as much as 50% back, but it really helps if you just decide, this time I'm going to go through, get as much as I can, and then reset that stage. If you want, you can select the architect and take an 80% hit to your next time, or a 60% hit to your next play session. And what that means is that you'll go in there, and anything that you gain, you only get part of, but it will lock the layout in place, so you know where everything is. You can find the treasure chest you were trying to get. You can, get to the bosses. It's good. It's best for boss runs. once you know you're okay to fight the boss, lock that down, warp right to the boss, try to fight it, keep retrying that way. So it's fun, it's frustrating. I want to smash my Vita, but I'm enjoying it nonetheless.
It actually kind of reminds me of Infinity Blade, only much more interesting.
Yes, Infinity Blade was so boring to play, but that concept is very similar. That you get to keep some of your stats from there. As you level up, all of your equipment upgrades and everything stay with you from generation to generation. As at the manor where you can upgrade your health or your mana or your attack power or your equipment burden, each time you select one of those upgrades, you gain a level. So right now I'm level 72, and each time you boost a stat, you go up one level. So it's constant progression. So it's not a restart at level 1 kind of rogue thing, but you're never getting like extremely powerful as you go along. It's always going to be kind of a gradual challenge to get you up there. So fun game, but can be very frustrating.
Oh, it sounds slightly less frustrating than a pure roguelike, at least.
Yes, definitely. That is very true.
Yeah.
So, I guess as far as that stuff goes, and as far as frustrating games go, you've been on, Demon Gaze for a while? You've been playing that for quite a while? I don't want you to drag out too long on this, just maybe briefly talk about...
Sure.
Is it fun? You don't have to give us the full rundown. We know it's kind of a dungeon crawler, but
yeah,
just briefly, what do you think about it?
It's mostly fun, and what's really nice is how fast the battle system goes. Like, select your attacks, hold down X, and you'll get through that round in probably less than 10 seconds.
Well, that's not bad.
Like, the animations, everything just goes super quick, so battles are really fast. Like, to the point where you may have to go, okay, let me open that log to figure out what on earth just happened. Like, it's really that fast.
Now, I'll admit to not really looking much into this game whatsoever, but I do own it. What is the one thing I was curious about? What is your party makeup like? How do you select your party? What kind of options do you have for party builds, for classes, stuff like that? Just, can you briefly say anything about that?
Yeah, so the main character is a set class, like Demon Gazer, something like that, with a specific set of abilities. But beyond that, you can open up to 4 additional party members. It kind of defaults to, here's a person, but you can select search for a roommate option instead, and basically, which is just a fancy way of saying make your own character. So
Gotcha.
It's got lots of the wizardry set of classes, wizards, paladin, samurai, all those kinds of things. But one kind of nice feature about the game is you can find artifacts that open up abilities from other classes. So say the paladin has a nice attack ability that you want on your samurai. If you find that artifact, you can equip it on them and have access to that. So there's a bit of customization there. The character classes kind of just unlock skills as you level. So although you can select where you get one stat increase every level, so you can kind of do a little customization there. But
okay.
Other than that, it's just creating your party.
Gotcha. So I know this one's been taking a while, and I'm just curious, is it more of a slog or is it more of a challenge, as in, difficulty kind of ramps up out of nowhere?
It's kind of more of a slog at times, and yeah, the difficulty definitely ramps up out of nowhere at times. It does let you adjust the difficulty whenever you want, but I mean sometimes that hasn't even helped. It just seems like some of the big bosses weren't balanced all that well, which from playing some of these wizardry type games seems to be a common theme. So not all that surprised, but yeah, it's a little frustrating, especially on this last boss who is just really annoying.
Gotcha.
Now, one
Well,
thing I forgot to mention that in addition to your party members, your main character can summon eventually 10 different demons that you unlock throughout the game, although you can only bring 3 at a time in a dungeon at the max. And depending on which ones you select, there's different abilities and bonuses you get. So there is additional customization there, but it's not as good as, say, the Etrian Odyssey games, but it's definitely, in my opinion, a step above like Class of Heroes, definitely Elmenage.
oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. And some of the more hardcore type wizardry games out there.
Okay.
And the story is very weird. I will say that.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the screens and everything from it, and it seems like the characters and the story seem to be their own unique little brand.
Yes. Oh, and it's got the ability to leave messages for other players. Similar
Yes,
to,
that's what I keep seeing screenshots of.
yes, similar to Demon Souls, Dark Souls, except there is no real filter on it. So although you'll find lots of helpful messages when you need them, there are also all sorts of bizarre and completely inappropriate messages all over the place.
Which seem to get tweeted all the time.
Yes. So I'm actually taking lots of screenshots, and once I finish the game, plan on putting up a gallery somewhere of all the ridiculous messages I found.
Nice.
Yeah.
So again, changing gears again, there was one other game that you imported, and that was Monster Hunter 4, because you didn't want to wait on that one.
No.
Figured don't want to drag too long on this one, but give us a quick rundown of how that one's been for you.
Sure. Can just kind of go for the new stuff since, as you might expect with a Capcom series, lots of incremental changes.
Yes.
I mean, I didn't even need to go through tutorials or anything. It just played it like it was Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, and it played like that. But there are some nice additions. There's 2 new weapon types. There's like it's kind of like a mix of the sword and shield and the switch axe weapon, where you use the sword and shield, kind of do some weaker attacks, and eventually build up charges, which you can use for the axe mode to use special attacks. And the other new weapon is like kind of like a quarterstaff type monk weapon, I would call it, which also uses some sort of weird insect armband, and I really didn't get how to use it at all. So we'll probably wait for the English version to mess around with it. But overall, it plays like you might expect Monster Hunter 2, except that they've added a lot of verticality to the new hunting grounds to go along with a new jumping attack, which is basically, if the monster's on a lower level than you, you can run off a ledge and hit the attack button and do a jumping attack for additional damage, or you may actually be able to jump on top of them and ride them for a while and get some free hits in. In addition to that, there's also you actually fight monsters while hanging onto cliffs or like climbing on the other side of tree branches and stuff like that. So I'd say they've added a lot more mobility and just a lot more height to at least the 2 hunting grounds I've been in so far. So,
well, the question I have then is, how has the ramp up been? Does it still feel like classic Monster Hunter? Going to take you a while to get to the point where you feel like you're actually playing the game?
Yeah, unfortunately, the tutorials, I don't know if it's just because they're in Japanese or what, but it seemed like the tutorials were even longer than I remember them being in Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, which it's obviously this is a popular series in Japan. I can't understand how there isn't some way to just skip all that and just go jump right into the missions.
Especially considering it didn't seem like you really needed it.
No, you really don't. There isn't a lot new here unless you're using one of the new weapons. But I mean, even those, at least the sword and shield type weapon, I didn't use a tutorial or anything. I just messed around with it and figured everything out, which is generally the case for most Monster Hunter weapons. You just kind of use them and figure them out and get a feel for them. So I don't really get the approach to the start of the game, and I can only hope that they kind of do something different with the updated version, but I'd expect them not to.
Yeah, well, that's definitely a shame. It seems like the barrier to entry is still the biggest problem with Monster Hunter and getting people into it, but still fun. The last question I have for you on that one, are you going to stick with it for a while, or?
I think so. I think I've finally reached as far as I want to go with 3 Ultimate, and I still feel like I want to play some Monster Hunter, so I think I'll probably stick with it for a while, and then probably take a break before the English version comes out.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice.
So, definitely a great improvement, but don't really see this as being any easier to get into.
Gotcha.
Even with all those freaking tutorials.
Yeah, sounds like I'm still going to be passing on this version unless they do some major changes. So.
Yeah, they have not found a way to really show people what the game is. What you're teaching the basic controls does not teach people Monster Hunter.
Yeah, unfortunately. Well, while I touch on the last 2 things that I've been playing recently, I'm going to give you a minute to kind of think about if there's any other upcoming handheld releases that you're looking forward to, maybe 1 or 2 of those that you wanted to touch on. But give you a second to think about that while I talk about the last couple things that I've been playing. Seems like, well, you've been mostly 3DS, I've been mostly Vita. Sony had a superhero-themed sale about a week ago, and I picked up Injustice: Gods Among Us on the Vita. Nice. $4.20, exactly under the $5 price range. I'd been waiting to pick that one up. I was a big fan of Mortal Kombat on the Vita. It was great.
Me too.
It seemed to fit perfectly. I really loved the way the story mode worked, where each character had its own chapter. You didn't have to. That's one thing I hate about fighting game story modes is when they give you the arcade select screen and you pick one character and you go through their story, and then to get more story you have to start over and go through another character's. I don't have the patience for that. I like the whole.
That's boring too.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
It is. That was one of the biggest problems I had getting into Persona 4 Arena when it came out. Is I really wanted to play that, really wanted more story, but I didn't want it told the way it was being told. I didn't want to have to pick one character and go through their little segment and then pick another character and go through theirs. I just wanted it, segmented out like this. And Mortal Kombat did it great. Injustice did it, in the same fashion. I wish I could say I care about the DC universe all that much. I didn't know half the characters on there. So, Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman, but, I didn't know who Deathstroke was. I feel like an idiot for not knowing some of these. I didn't know who, that was the worst part of the game, is if you didn't know the characters, the game sure as heck didn't introduce them to you. Because there were some villains I was fighting, and I went through this whole thing, and it wasn't until I started the battle and it brought their name up on the top of the bar that I was like, oh, I guess that's who I'm fighting. I have no idea why I'm fighting them, but okay, I'm fighting them. But it was fun. It was a good little palate cleanser between games. Didn't take me too long to get through. But I really think I preferred Mortal Kombat. And it's a shame. It seems like, Mortal Kombat 10 or X or whatever they're calling it probably won't make it to Vita, or at least if it does, it just seems to have a less likely chance considering it's next-gen hardware now, or new-gen hardware, not next-gen. But one can always hope. There's always a chance.
Yeah, it'd be nice. I'd love some more fighting games like that on the Vita.
Indeed. But the other game I was playing, and I just went through, is I did a replay of The Walking Dead Season 1 on Vita. Played it on PlayStation 3, I guess 2 years ago now, or whenever it came out. Absolutely loved the game. Fantastic storytelling, wonderful choice making. The quick time events weren't really quick time events. It wasn't anything that was causing you any problems. It was just all really about making gut-wrenching choices and knowing that, while your decisions may not have had like a major impact on how the story played out in the end, it did impact the moment-to-moment things and how characters that you were working with interacted with you. And I decided to replay it on Vita because I wanted to import my saves and my decisions from Season 1 into Season 2, which Telltale has actually, done a good job keeping up with the episodic release on the Vita. Unlike The Wolf Among Us, which I'm still waiting to see any of the episodes hit for what was supposed to be a spring release. I'm beginning to wonder if it's going to be a spring of 2015. Now that it's completely out on consoles and PC, I'm still waiting for any of the episodes to hit Vita. Still say it's gonna, but at least this way, since I don't play episodically, I can just binge on it all at one time when they finally do release it. I've got Season 2 of The Walking Dead ready. I think it's up through Episode 4 now, so as soon as the 5th episode hits, I'm going to purge on all of those or binge on all of those, not purge. And just love it to death. And if you haven't played The Walking Dead, and I'm basically talking to you.
Yeah, I have not.
Seriously, don't hesitate. Pick it up. Some of the best gaming experiences that I've had in forever. Easily an all-time favorite. So really enjoy that. The Vita version does have a few hiccups. Just due to loading screens sometimes will cut into the next section where you need to be doing actual gameplay. So a little bit of a hesitation on that. But overall, totally playable and totally great on a portable.
I'm definitely going to have to give that a try at some point.
It really is worth it. Any reason you have hesitation on this one?
Kind of like the visual novel-ish type games kind of turned me off, but this sounds like the kind I would actually like. So
yeah, this is no visual novel by any means. You haven't played, I guess, Heavy Rain either or anything like that?
I only played a little bit of Heavy Rain.
Okay, but it really is. It's less about twitch action and more about the decisions that you make and what you go through and kind of explore. There's enough action to where it's not boring, you're just reading text, but there's not so much that you feel like you've got to do this and that to be good enough to beat this section. There are some places you can fail and some things like that, but mostly it's about the decisions you make and who you side with and what you decide to do in this type of situation. And there really is nothing else that I've played that really gives that same kind of feel. Heavy Rain came close in a lot of ways and does a lot of things kind of differently. So while they're probably the closest two things I can compare, even still, those two are two totally different experiences. So totally loved it. Can't wait for the final episode to hit on Vita for Season 2 so I can dive into that.
I think I'm just going to have to take the plunge at some point.
Yeah, if you've got some time, definitely do it. It's totally worth it. Totally worth it.
I think I was considering it a while back, but after playing Last of Us, I wasn't really in the mood for any kind of game that might be depressing.
Yeah.
That one left me depressed enough.
Yeah, this one can be pretty heartbreaking at times. So yeah, I wouldn't do some back-to-back sad stuff. That's for sure. Um, but I think that's it for the games that we've been uh, playing recently. Just wanted to close out real briefly and just kind of mention one or two things that you're looking forward to in the handheld gaming area as we finish up and close this out. So I'll let you kind of close up. You've had a little bit of time maybe to think about it. Is there anything on the horizon that you're looking forward to over the next little bit?
Close range would be Disgaea 4, which on the Vita, which I've already gotten to play, since that's probably my favorite in the series gameplay wise. So I'm gonna love having that on the go. But more importantly, Persona Q would be the big handheld game I'm looking forward to this year. A mix of Etrian Odyssey and Persona. It seems like a game that was made personally for me.
Yes, see, I've never been able to get into any of the Etrian Odyssey games. I think Untold was probably Untold 1 now was probably the one that I've had the most time with and actually enjoyed and would probably play more of. But for some reason, it still didn't catch me enough to stick with it for a long amount of time. But I think Persona Q, with having the Persona characters that I already know and love, I think that may be the one that does it. So I'm looking forward to that one as well.
Excellent.
Disgaea, I'm still unsure about. Have still never really dove into one, even though I own all the portable ones and will own this one too. But I'm not. Yeah, I'll probably leave that one to you to love on and to be the yin to my yang on, for sure.
Well, if you ever get the chance, I would start with 3. That is my recommendation.
Okay. I do have 3 on Vita, so I could give that one a shot for sure.
Because that was really my first Disgaea, and I beat it in like 30 hours without a ton of grinding, just going through the story. So that seems like it might be an easy way to just kind of jump into the series.
Okay, nice. I will definitely consider that because I've got it on Vita, might as well give it a shot. So if I'm going to play one, might as well play it on the system I'm enjoying right now. But as for me, with some upcoming releases, I just received from you a copy of Sword Art Online Hollow Fragment, the imported version with English subtitles, which apparently the latest patch apparently is supposed to have fixed some of the typos and made it a little less Englishy.
Thank the heavens, because there were a lot of those.
Yeah, I think I'm willing to give this a shot. I just wanted the physical copy anyways, just because I'm a collector, so I kind of wanted it. Sure. So I'm going to give that one a shot when it hits, and I'll probably just play this one and let somebody else here, tackle the official English version. But I'm looking forward to that, and a couple other games. Velocity 2X is looking fun. It just got announced it's hitting early September. I want to check that out. It's kind of a top-down shooter mixed with Metroid-style puzzle platforming.
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, the first one I played, and it was just a top-down shooter, and it was fun enough. But adding in the puzzle platforming stuff that I really enjoy, I think kind of makes it an even more interesting game for me. And I think on the 19th there's Counter Spy hitting for the PlayStation Vita as well, and a lot of those are also cross-buy and cross-play or cross-save between PS4 as well. But Counter Spy looks like a real stealth action game, and it just looks really cool from the screenshots that I've seen, the videos and trailers. It looks less retro than a lot of the other indie stuff that's been out recently, and I'm really looking forward to giving those a shot. So August and September for handheld gaming have just been packed full, and it doesn't look like it's stopping anytime soon, does it?
No, well, and that's good considering all the console titles have been delayed till next year.
Yes, that is very true. Oh, well, as far as this goes, I just want to thank Mr. Michael Apps for joining me on this initial test run of Pocket Console's Google Hangouts live broadcast, which we decided not to make completely live for everybody, but decided to do it in one go. No real testing or anything. We just wanted to dive in here and talk about what we've been playing and see how it worked out, and hopefully you all enjoyed it. If so, please let us know. If not, I'm sorry. You can let us know that too, but I'm not going to take it too personally if you didn't enjoy it. So hopefully you did, and if you made it all the way to the end, I can't understand why you didn't enjoy it and why you kept listening. So uh, nonetheless, try to keep this up if there is some good feedback on it, and just kind of see how things work out. So thank you again, Mr. Apps. I appreciate it. Let's feel free again to visit pocket-console.com for all of your handheld gaming news and reviews and editorials and fun stuff. I'm trying to kind of keep that one up on my own and be willing to have any kind of guest editorials, reviews, news stuff that anybody would like to post. I'm going to start considering having more people involved if they really want to, but if not, you know what, I'm just going to kind of enjoy running it in my spare time. So thank you all for listening, and you all have a good night. Take care.